Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I just saw something that was absolutely fantastic, and one of the main reasons why I have never been left or right, but always about right and wrong. I don't play team politics, it's not a sport. I don't identify with an elephant or a donkey, and one of those reasons is because sometimes the left is right and sometimes the right is right. And sometimes Democrats take on corruption more than the Republicans. Not that many alternative media outlets will tell you that today or even cover this story. So Jeffrey Epstein, who obviously got a sweetheart deal, has been in the limelight. Mainly due to the Miami Herald. Props to them. Props to the Miami Herald to really shining a light on the darkness that has been this saga that has been now going on well over a decade in the public eye. The latest scrutiny coming to Alexander ACOSTA, who's the labor secretary under Trump, but also the man who finagled this deal with Epstein. Or did he? How much control did he really have? If you want to read about that deal in depth, as in-depth as it possibly can go, before all these different revelations that have come out with the recent lawsuit, Filthy Rich is the way to go. Very well sourced, has ACOSTA in there a bunch. But what we're going to do here is we are going to go over what this woman, Kimberly Clark, I believe her name is. No, Catherine Clark, excuse me. Catherine Clark had to say, a Democrat from Massachusetts, by the way, to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there was another woman after Clark got into her, Frankel, that briefly mentioned it, and then I'm going to just give ACOSTA credit ahead of time. He said that he would take a senior member of his staff and that he would appoint them to some kind of a trafficking, not so much an investigation. You really have to watch it to understand it. She babbled a bit, I'm not going to lie. But the way that this kicks off with Clark is her pointing out the fact that they are cutting the budget, the Labor Department is, of fighting this type of trafficking. So let's just get right to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for joining us, Secretary ACOSTA. The Department of Labor is a member of the Interagency Task Force to monitor and combat trafficking in persons. Is that correct?
Yes.
In fact, the International Labor Affairs Bureau, ILAB, within the Department of Labor is responsible for combating exploitive child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's fair to say Department of Labor plays a very active role in combating human trafficking, and the problem is a large one.
The problem is a large one. The Department of Labor recently issued a report, and it actually detailed 1,700 recommendations that could be looked at around the world to address this. It also
that is excellent, and I know that there are hundreds of thousands of adults and children who are victims of sex and labor trafficking in the U.S. Glad you are looking at, glad you've detailed a comprehensive strategy, but you've also proposed a budget cut of almost 80%, 79% to ILAB, where this work is done, bringing its budget from $68 million to just $18.5 million.
Let me just stop it right there. All these people that have said, oh, Trump hates sex traffickers. Remember all these secret sealed indictments that never went down? The fact that Hillary for prison was just a slogan, nothing anybody took seriously. The fact that there really wasn't any real investigations even into what the Podesta emails were, but that's a whole nother subject. You talk about corruption in the Epstein case, it's over the top. I've covered it time and time again. So now the guy who cut the deal with Epstein is the head of the department that's cutting the funding by 79+%. Please proceed.
I'm sure you've come prepared to justify this cut to us, but it does not go unnoticed. This isn't the first time that you've ignored human trafficking.
Oh,
When you were the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, your office investigated Jeffrey Epstein and your office found that there had been a sexual abuse pyramid scheme that involved at least 36 underage girls, ranging from age 14 to 17.
so let's just stop it right there. She is dropping some bombs here that most people in Congress and the Senate really don't want to talk about. Now, remember, she just said, I believe, 36 different young women between let's not call them young women, they were girls at the time, 14 to 17. Now, one of the things she doesn't mention is that it's recently been revealed, now that they're taking a look at this deal, that Epstein didn't even have to plea as a sex offender to the 14-year-old, the initial case that everybody thought he pled to. Instead, he pled to a 16-year-old girl. Why is this significant? Well, as I've shown you in previous videos, depending on the sourcing in the United States, 30 or 31 states consent is 16, which means in places where he owns property like New Mexico, where 16 is consent, he didn't have to register as a sex offender. Sounds fair. Sounds fair.
This is horrifying and sick stuff. Mr. Epstein raped and assaulted these girls. He recruited them out of shopping malls. He had employees that helped with this. And then he invited his friends to do the same.
I mean, boom, this woman. This should be front page everywhere. And you might sparsely hear about it in the mainstream, maybe tomorrow. I doubt that this is going to take off. I wish it would. And if it does, it'll all be politicized about the right and left and Trump's labor secretary. But again, this isn't a right or left issue. Do you hear what she just said? What he did to those girls? How he hired people? How he groomed them from shopping malls and other places? This is bombshell stuff for a congresswoman to be confronting ACOSTA about this stuff. Bam.
And there is evidence that he transported these girls among his mansions throughout the United States and abroad. Epstein and his friends destroyed these girls' lives. Senator Ben Sasse called Mr. Epstein a monster. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
He engaged in vile crimes, yes.
So thank you, Mr. Acosta, for admitting that, yes, he was involved in vile crimes. That's very nice of you to do that. I appreciate that. But you won't say he's a monster. Vile crimes, can't admit he's a monster. No, I get it. Not enough. I get it. Let's keep going.
You're a law professor, besides many of your other jobs that you've had, and I'm sure you know there's no such thing as child prostitution under federal law, only child sex trafficking. And each offense under 18 U.S.C. 1591 carries a sentence ranging from 10 years to life in prison. So logically, Mr. Epstein, with the investigation of the federal U.S. Attorney's Office, should have been looking at a potential sentence of 360 years at a minimum.
At a minimum. Let's repeat that. I like that face. Good for you. 360 years at a minimum. About the crimes we know about the things that haven't been sealed and obfuscated from us. Minimum, he should have been looking at 360 years.
But that's not what happened, because there was a power dynamic here, wasn't there? We had teenage girls with no power who were rape and sexual assault victims, and we had Mr. Epstein and his friends, extremely powerful, wealthy, and connected people. And in a ruling on February 21st of 2019, Judge Mara found you illegally entered a non-prosecution agreement that allowed Mr. Epstein to serve just 13 months in county jail, where he received 12 hours a day on work release, 6 days out of the week. The judge found you broke the law, Secretary Acosta.
Let's just stop it there. I mean, nail in the coffin. You broke the law. And I'm happy this is happening. I know there's going to be some people out there wearing MAGA hats that are upset that Jason Burmis is pointing out that Trump's golden boy has to answer for the fact that he whitewashed the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. But Trump played that same game. We all know it. We all remember on the lead up to the election when Sean Hannity was there and he asked him about Bill Clinton. And he said, Bill Clinton, nice guy. He might have some problems, though, when things come up about him and Jeffrey Epstein. Oh. As if Trump didn't ride on Epstein's jet. As if Trump's name wasn't in those books. Now, I will say this. In the book, Filthy Rich by James Patterson, he absolutely says that Trump found out that he was pimping one of the Mar-a-Lago's daughters, who was a wealthy man, and that's when he cut ties with Epstein. Now, I know that there was the charge against Trump that from a Jane Doe that never surfaced of underage scandal. That went away. I'm not accusing him of anything like that. But he ran in these same circles, and he does not seem like he's going to come in and save the day like everybody thinks and prosecute Epstein and his cronies. All right? So let's get back to seeing what Mr. Acosta has to say about the fact that he illegally did this.
When you chose not to tell the victims about this deal, and that you gave them the impression that this investigation was ongoing. And do you disagree with any of the facts that were found in the opinion that Judge Mara issued?
Congresswoman, first let me say that the Southern District of Florida has prosecuted sex trafficking aggressively in the past, and it is an incredibly important issue, and it's something that needs to be aggressively pursued. Turning to the
Do you disagree with? Now, I get to ask the questions here. Do you disagree with any of the facts as presented in the opinion of Judge Mara?
The Department of Justice, I think rightly so, for the past 12 years has defended the action.
That is a yes or no question. I ask unanimous consent to submit the opinion. The hideous truth has come out. You chose wealthy and well-connected people, child rapists, over the victims.
Love it. Love it. The truth has come out. The truth has come out. You chose what? What over justice? The wealthy and child rapists. Oh. Well, at least somebody in Congress has the balls to say it. Let's continue. Because you know what? Acosta actually is going to make a bombshell admission here that I've never heard anywhere else. That, again, should be headlines everywhere, but we'll see how far this gets. Again, props to the Miami Herald for continuing to cover this, so I knew where to go find this, but thank you. Thank you for doing real journalism.
In this case, if you as U.S. attorney, as a prosecutor, where your job is to pursue justice, could not fight for these girls, how, as Secretary of Labor, can you tell this panel and the American people that you can responsibly oversee this budget, the Department of Labor, including human trafficking? Is there no answer?
Is that a question?
That was a question.
So, as I was saying, the Department of Justice for the past 12 years has defended the actions of the office in this case. The facts in this case were presented to a grand jury that that actually recommended a charge that would have carried no jail time at all.
He's saying that they gave the evidence to a grand jury, and the grand jury recommended a sentence of 0 jail time. You heard what she said. Bare minimum, he should have been looking at 360 years. Now Acosta is coming out and saying they presented the evidence to a grand jury, and the grand jury actually recommended no jail time. None.
And at the end
Do you regret making this deal in secret?
And at the end of the day,
Do you regret making this deal in
Congresswoman,
secret?
if I could finish. If at the end of the day, Mr. Epstein went to jail, Epstein was incarcerated, He registered as a sex offender. The world was put on notice that he was a sex offender, and the victims received restitution.
13 months in county jail, 12 hours a day, work release. You consider that justice for the devastation of these girls?
Yep. I mean, I'd stop talking too if I had to make that deal. And again, this is the first time anywhere that I've heard that the evidence was actually presented to a grand jury and that evidence was looked at and that grand jury was going to recommend that Epstein did no time whatsoever. Was everybody on the grand jury suddenly driving Ferraris and having, 3-story homes out of nowhere? Because I can't imagine, with the evidence that's publicly available and the travesty of justice that we know was carried out, could have been worse without something like that happening. Guys, if you enjoy this channel, please, 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 please smash that subscribe button. Make sure you ring the bell on the notifications. Share this on social media. Let your friends and family know about the channel so that it grows. Go check out my other work over at We Are Change and Pulse Change. We put out 4 videos a day there. But most importantly, man, get out there. Be your own hero. Be the change you want to see in the world. Otherwise, this stuff's going to keep going on. We need more citizen journalists. We need more people that are going to get out there and question the establishment, question the status quo, not fall into this false left-right paradigm where we sit here and bicker amongst each other while monsters on both sides of the aisle visit places like Epstein's Little St. James Island. Thanks again, guys.